welcome back to episode 11 of Your List Sucks. This should be a very interesting one because I kind of like bad topics sometimes, so we can trash on it the entire episode, because normally I just trash on people's opinion of what good movies are. Tonight we're talking about top 10 worst summer blockbusters. Again, I kind of don't give any of my panelists like criteria that they have to meet. I just give them the basics of, if you think it's a summer blockbuster and you think it's the worst, you'll have to defend it. But if you're wrong, I will probably tear you apart. So first on the show, we've got Jeremy. Jeremy, how are you doing tonight? And are you excited for this list?
I'm excited. I'm very glad to be here for the first time on your awesome show. This is a cool format. And, usually I feel like I spend a lot of time in this community being nice and respectful and just having a good upbeat time with everybody. So, let's mix it up. Let's actually trash some stuff and yell at each other and have some fun. I'm down. So let's do it.
Yes, when you said you wanted to be on the show, I did not pass on that opportunity at all, because I'm excited to see Jeremy trashing things. Next, we've got Kirk. Kirk's back on the show. Did a fantastic job on monster movies. Was interested to bring him back. So, are you excited to talk about this topic?
Yeah, I'm real excited. Monster movies, my last appearance, pulled out the win on that one. Came out with the victory, and I'm very excited this time to finish up here 2-0 and compete for that Your List Sucks championship. Let's do it.
Well, actually, on Your List Sucks, you're actually the opposite. You're actually winning. So Kaleb Koho and Ryan Permison are going for that championship right now. You are in the bottom and almost facing a retirement match. But next on the call is a guy I wanted to get on here for a long time. Mm-hmm. He's got a great personality in this community. Likes some Pittsburgh team, which I don't know about that. But we'll go to Nick Harley. Nick, how are you doing? Are you excited to be on the show?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be on. Man, this was a tough list to put together. There is a lot of crappy movies out there. So I'm very curious to see what everybody else's lists are, and if I like any of those films, it should be good stuff.
Yes, like I said, I don't get to pick a topic myself. I don't get to make a list. I just judge these people on the list that they have. Basically, how the show's going to break down is each person has their personal top 10 list. They're going to break it down for you, tell you why they have those at their spot. I'm going to publicly ridicule them if I completely disagree with them, and the rest of the panel is going to join in, because I guess we promote bullying on this show, but in a nice, fun way, because what else is the film community besides bashing people on their opinion of film? So basically, it's going to go 10, 9, 8. Each person's going to give a little blurb about those three movies, why they made their list, but almost didn't make their list, because I think at the bottom of the list, it sometimes doesn't matter. So I'm going to start with Jeremy. Jeremy, okay. Give us your 10, 9, 8. And again, if anybody has any of that he brings up, please speak up and tell them, and we'll talk about them at a later time. So Jeremy, take it away.
All right. I just want to preface saying that my personal criteria was I started at May so that, the movie, if it came out in May, it was still running into the summer, ended, at the end of the summer. And I was going off of the top 20 films of each year. So if it grossed in the top 20 that year, that's the criteria I was going off of. Now, the first one here, this is a movie that a lot of people really hate. I don't have the strongest opinion about. I do think it's probably the worst movie in the franchise, and there are other bad ones in this franchise too, so that's saying kind of a lot. I don't personally get up in arms about it, but it's a pretty bad movie. It's X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's the one movie in the X-Men franchise that I have. I think that it's a theme that I think is going to come up with this is sequels and franchises that really do not understand the franchise, that totally betray a lot of what the fans love. And this movie did a lot with terrible special effects on Wolverine's claws, for one thing, unnecessary backstories that just kind of make everything confusing, and of course introducing Deadpool and then taking away his ability to speak. So it was a betrayal to the franchise in a lot of ways. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, so it's not high on my list, but I think it's bad enough. And that franchise has had some missteps, so I had to pick one X-Men movie. My number 9, another franchise sequel. This is one where I think this was a really important, again, a superhero franchise, a really important franchise that really meant a lot, but really went off the rails in the third film, and that is Spider-Man 3. the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 film. So, okay, nobody has that one, I guess. I'm waiting for someone to say it. All right, well, there was another Spider-Man movie I could have picked as well, another one. I was kind of back and forth. But I just remember I was, back in that time when that movie came out, I was really into that franchise. I went to that theater. I was so excited. We knew we were going to get Venom on the big screen. We knew we were going to get Sandman. There was so much goodwill built up from Spider-Man 2. And the one thing I remember more than anything else is the scene where Mary Jane gives Peter his ring back and he's like crying and weeping. And I'm like, what is that? What happened? What am I watching? And people were laughing in the theater. It was one of the low points I think I've ever experienced in a kind of a summer movie. And that's just one of so many missteps I could get into in that movie. I mean, they were going to have a 4. They were going to keep that thing going. Sam Raimi was going to keep making those, and that just derailed all of it. And there's a lot of other sequels and superhero franchises that have derailed franchises, but I think that one really sticks out because it started at such a high and it crashed so fast. My number 8, this is an interesting one because, I think when we talk about like franchise sequels, a lot of times we have high expectations. There's so much good material, so many good characters, so much they can pull from to make good sequels. But then there are the cases where there never should have been sequels. The fact that there were sequels at all is ridiculous. And that should have stopped with one. One was all we needed. And I'm going to the Jaws franchise. And I'm going to one that actually was in the top 20 of that year. It actually made a lot of money in its time. Jaws 3D. Which on the one hand is I mean, 3D was, a lot of people complained a few years ago with the 3D craze, but there was a 3D craze in the 80s. And if you think 3D was annoying in our time, back in the 80s, 3D was awful, and they were shoving it down like the teen market's throat. And around the same time, we got Friday the 13th 3D, and then we got this movie, and it's got one of the most infamous shots ever where the very fake shark crashes through the glass into the frame, and it's supposed to be scary, and it's one of the most ridiculous things ever. And it's a very boring movie. It's an unnecessary movie. Jaws 2 was unnecessary, never should have had it, and this was just one step further. Jaws the Revenge is the worst, but that one didn't make as much money, so it didn't quite count. And why that was the beginning of let's sully great movies with unnecessary sequels. That was a trend that would continue long after, but Jaws really kind of was the beginning of all that, and that's why it definitely needed to be on my list.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Oof. Absolutely. Very passionate about those. But Spider-Man 3, as somebody that just had to play in a random match and watch those again, Spider-Man 3, it was the correct move that they made, that they had to include Venom. I just don't believe Topher Grace was the right choice.
That was a terrible choice.
Terrible choice. Else. So I think it was just a rough overall movie. X-Men Origins, I'm a little upset that that's so low because that's a real dumpster fire for
I'm
me.
shocked I'm the only one that had it.
Yeah, Will.i.am.
I mean, there's a lot of bad movies out. There's a lot of bad movies out.
The movie that has Will.i.am in it, that was a problem. Yeah. And Jaws 3D, I'll just leave that with the title. That means enough. So we're gonna go to Nick now. Nick, give us your 10, 9, 8, and again, after you say the movie, wait to see if anybody has on my list. Okay.
Okay. All right. My 10. I'm gonna continue the superhero trend here, and I'm gonna go with one that was just so incredibly cheesy, but I still got some entertainment out of it. It was 1997's Batman and Robin.
You get that.
I'll give it.
Have that one higher.
Don't be surprised. Yeah, that's on my list.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess
we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. But I don't know. It was. I mean, obviously, it's a terrible film, and we've talked about how many.
Yeah, we'll talk. About
sorry.
it.
Oh, sorry. We'll talk about it. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm understanding the rules slowly but surely.
You're
okay.
Good.
All right. My number 9 is. I'd be kind of surprised if anyone has this on this list. I just kind of came across it one day, but it's just terrible the whole way through. There's no notable actors in it. I don't understand why it was even made. It was the movie Kazam with Shaq.
Like, have respect for Shaq, good sir.
That's a good pick.
Well, I'm just saying, every movie on this list is terrible. We all know this, but this movie made absolutely no sense. I mean, it was obviously just a big cash grab because it was when he was at the height of his playing career, and kids just wanted to see him on the screen, and it was just a massive Aladdin ripoff, and it made I almost hate talking about it. I loved how it has one of the lowest scores on IMDb. It's a 2.9 out of 10, which is completely understandable.
It's like Shaq's free throw percentage.
Good one. That's a great one. But yeah, no, it's just one of those movies that was just a massive cash grab, and you'll see this trend coming on my list. But it's one of those things that should have never been made. And then on number 8, which I feel like I should have put this movie higher, but every movie is just slightly worse. I'm going to go with Catwoman as my number 8.
Oh.
Wow, I'm surprised no one had that higher. I figured at least a couple of you would.
All right, tell us about Catwoman. Did he just cut out?
Technical issues.
Yep.
Well, I'll save him because there was not a lot to say about this. I think most people didn't have it on their list because they probably fell asleep.
Because
he's back.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, no, hey, sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yep. You're good.
Okay, sorry. No, like you said, it's one of those movies that 30 minutes in, you're falling asleep. It was just poorly directed, poorly acted. The villain was terrible. Everybody phoned it in. I don't understand. And we had and it was just a big break between the last few movies, and you had the first 2 Spider-Mans that had come out, and there's just so many things going against it. But yeah, it's just a terribly made movie. I know it's on the top of a lot of people's lists, but it was just one of those things that I just laughed all the way through because of how poorly made it was. So that's my number 8.
Yeah, that's very valid.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Batman and Robin later, but how dare you talk about the greatness of Shaq?
I have nothing against Shaq. I just have something against that movie.
The only thing that would have made Aladdin better is a giant cameo from Kazam himself. No, I'm just kidding. Catwoman, yeah, that movie is... I had to rewatch it recently for a Fandom match, and I made it 45 minutes in, and I said, if I'm going to lose on a Catwoman question, then so be it. I'm not doing this to myself.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think this is a fine list. You took it in a different angle than I thought, and I kind of like it. So I'm excited to see what the rest of your list holds, which I already know it, but I'm excited for the rest of the panel to find out. All right, Kirk. It is your turn. 10, 9, 8. Let us have it.
Before I start, I'm just going to put a little caveat on my list because I have this really bad habit of avoiding movies that I know are going to be terrible.
I'm with you a little on that. That's why some are missing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's probably going to be some really iconically bad or obvious choices that if I watch Fast and Furious and Transformers movies, this list would probably all be Fast and Furious and Transformers movies, but. Nope. I skipped. So what we're going to see here is a lot of movies. Maybe that next tier, a lot of movies people probably might respect a little bit are going to be on the list. Just to give you a warning.
It's fair,
but it is what it is. My number 10 is a movie that technically I basically went with Jeremy's same criteria, and this technically fits that criteria, but it really doesn't fit the spirit like what you think about a summer blockbuster. It's the worst movie on my list, but because I only it's not you don't think of it as a blockbuster. I didn't feel good about putting it higher, number 10, and that is Scary Movie. Scary Movie.
The first one?
The first one.
Wow.
It's only I tapped out after that one.
Okay.
All right. Interesting.
Because until my wife forced me to go see My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 with her, this was the worst movie that I ever paid to see. It's completely unfunny. It's the worst kind of parody where it's, hey, look, here's something you saw before happen again, and somehow it's funny because you've seen it before. It spawned all those horrible date movie, epic movies, which are just a complete blight on human civilization. So it definitely has to be shut down for that. So that's my number 10 is Scary Movie. My number 9, and again, this is another one I think people might get upset about. My number 9 is Man of Steel.
Whoa!
Is Man of
What?
is,
Ooh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
is Man of Steel the worst superhero movie we've ever seen? No. Is Man of Steel the worst translation of a superhero from comic book page onto screen? Probably. Zack Snyder has no idea who or what this character is, and he purposely remade him in his own meathead image. It is just it's just a horrible, tonally off movie. It's the anti-Iron Man, where Iron Man spawned the MCU, which was amazing. This spawned the DCEU, which is a complete mess because of how violently they stumbled out of the gate with this one. I think a lot of the troubles with DCEU, you can go back to this one. They started so bad, they really didn't have anywhere to go. So number 9 is number 9 is Man of Steel. My number 8 is another comedy. It's Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. For me personally, the Austin Powers shtick got old about halfway through the third act of the first Austin Powers movie, so there was no need for a sequel in the first place. And this one is just the worst of comedy sequels, where they just hit all the same beats and do everything over and over again. And oh, look, remember this from last movie? It's funny, right? Remember this was funny. So I mean, you see this with you saw Anchorman, you saw it with Hangover, saw it with Ace Ventura. A lot of these do it, but I think this is the worst example. So yeah, that's my number 8.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
three movies I like.
This is the bottom 3. You'll get to trash them later, but this is just me and Kirk time, okay?
All right.
Listen, at the start of your list, I am now brushing off a spot on the Hall of Fame of Your List Sucks. So far, I have Kaleb Koho up there, I have Ryan Peterson, and I have Sandy Robinson. And you can fit right next to Sandy. My goodness. Scary movies, say what it is. I'm not a huge fan of it either. I don't consider it a bad one, but in your eyes, that's fine. The one, Man of Steel, even. I hate Man of Steel. I've even used the expression that if I could trade places with a person in a viewing experience, I'd rather be Zod at the end than have to deal with that movie. The problem I have, good sir, is The Spy Who Shagged Me is an insult and a travesty. That movie is funny. If you don't like that funny, that is fine with you, but do not insult the rest of the general public because they find it funny. I even love Goldmember. I want the 4th one. I want the 5th one. I don't care. I think it's hilarious. I think it's just a bad placement. Again, everybody at the end will give your overall viewpoints. I will ask you right before one what you totally disagree with. So if something's at the bottom, please save me for that. But
okay.
So far, if we had to go out of the gates, Kirk is in a drastic lead. But we are going to Jeremy next. You're going to start at 7. You won't stop till 4, but you'll go one at a time.
All right.
If somebody has something on their list, please stop and wait for it. But go ahead.
All right. Well, I was talking about how Spider-Man 3 was a movie that derailed a franchise. The third film introducing a bunch, an incoherent movie with a lot of villains and a bunch of stuff that didn't make sense and totally sullying the highs of the great movies that had come before. Well, it wasn't the first movie that did that. That happened many years earlier in one of the biggest, let's take a great franchise and crap on it in every way we can. And this has hurt me for my entire life because this is one of my favorite franchises, and that is the 1983 stink pile that is Superman 3. Before Spider-Man 3, there was Superman 3. So since I'm not hearing any pauses, I will continue. Yes, so tiny backstory. Richard Donner was replaced by Richard Lester. He finished Superman 2, put a little slapstick in that movie, but didn't hurt it too much. I think it's still good, even with the touches he put on it. But then he got Superman 3, and this director, Richard Lester, was like, well, I put some slapstick in Superman 2. Let's make Superman 3 pretty much all slapstick. Let's get Richard Pryor in there. Make Superman the supporting character. Make Richard Pryor this wacky, improbably great computer programmer who just suddenly knows computers with no training. Make him the lead in the movie. Instead of Lex Luthor, let's get some random rich guy who's a Lex Luthor wannabe to be the villain. And let's just put a bunch of stuff in there that doesn't make any sense. So Superman getting bad kryptonite, going evil. There's a weird scene where he's with the gangster's girlfriend, and there's like an oral sex scene. I'm not kidding you. There is like an implied oral sex scene in this movie. It is an absolute insult. And no, it's not even the worst Superman movie in the franchise, because Quest for Peace is actually even worse, but that movie didn't make very much money. Superman 3 was a big earner that year. So that's the next one for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right,
hold on. Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't explain it well. After each one, we'll kind of like talk about that one with other people. Just give it more open.
Yeah.
But 7.
Sure.
My personal, I'll just do it quick. If you have anything to blurb, it's a real quick blurb. Don't go into a huge tangent. But my viewpoint is I'm not a huge fan of the Superman movies, of the old ones. So everybody told me to stay away from this one. So I have never seen it, and I probably never will. I saw clips, I saw like a bit of it while I was playing, but I never have sat down fully and watched the whole thing through. Kirk, Nick, any thought of putting Superman 3 on your list? Just wondering.
Go ahead, Kirk.
I just say this is a bubble movie for me. Definitely. I went through the same logic as Jeremy did. I would have put 4 on if it made enough money. But yeah, 3 is that's especially 2 was my favorite Superman movie, and coming off that, this is garbage.
Yeah, it's same sort of thought processes. It was probably like in my top 15, but it didn't quite make the list. Mm-hmm. But it's a terrible movie, no question.
All right, go to your number 6. By the way, thanks everybody in the chat. I'll shout you out after Jeremy's list.
All right, I'm praying to God to hear that you guys have this one, because this movie is a headache. It is another franchise movie, and I think in a pretty bad overarching franchise, to me, this is the worst one there, and that's saying a lot. And that is the immortal, Oscar-winning Suicide Squad. No one has it.
That's
all right. Yeah, I think there was so much promise for this movie. I think that this is the one that really could have turned the DCU around, and it was mangled. It's edited like by a trailer company. It's a headache to watch. It really doesn't make any sense. It recycles the same kind of tired plot we'd seen already in so many of these movies. The snake's kind of eating its own tail. And though there's a couple of performances, Will Smith and Margot Robbie, I think, do what they can. I just think it's a mess. And, a lot of the supporting performances don't work. And one thing that really personally bothers me about it is they take one of my favorite relationships in comics between Joker and Harley, and they really just totally misunderstand that and make it this really good thing, like they're really kind of in love in their crazy way, and that is just such an insult for me personally. Just again, like some of the other movies I mentioned, they don't understand their own subject matter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I really hate Suicide Squad. People in the chat have to disagree with you. They say there's way worse films than that, but I can disagree. I remember watching this movie and thinking, wow, so this is what we did. This is great. There's so many things that don't make sense. The only human one of the human elements is the one that kills the Enchantress. There's an awkward belly dancing scene, and a member from the movie Gods of Egypt shows up at one point to try to attack the Suicide Squad.
Pretty much.
Very awkward point for me. So I don't like this. Would it make the top 10? I don't know. There's a ton of worse blockbusters, but I'm glad that Jeremy at least brought it up so we can talk about it. Kirk, Nick, why no Suicide Squad? Oh, wait, Kirk's just trying to put good movies on his list. Go ahead.
Suicide Squad, that is a really bad film. But, man, I have a couple other comic book films coming up that are much worse in my opinion. But, like I said, there are so many films to pick. It was a tough list to put together. So I know that's a cop-out answer, but
I cut Suicide slack a little bit. I cut it a little bit of slack because, like Jeremy said, it's so poorly edited. I watched that, and it almost makes it worse. You look at there's a good movie in here somewhere, but it's just butchered, and so that's probably why it didn't make my list.
The music director or music editor video that made that movie terrible. All right, give us your 5, Jeremy.
All right, my number 5, it was mentioned before. I don't know if the other player that's left has it higher, but it is the immortal Batman and Robin.
Okay. Push that forward, yeah.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay.
All right. Put it on ice. Okay.
We'll wait. All right, so my number 4. All right. I don't even know what to say about this one. So in 1997, I suffered seeing Batman and Robin in the theater, and that was quite a disturbing experience. The next year, I'm like, it's summertime again. Had a bad experience with Batman and Robin last year, but you know what? Let's go see another movie in the theater. This is one of my favorite characters. I always watched these movies as a kid. They're rebooting it. They're Americanizing it. This is going to be awesome. It is the 1998 debacle that is Roland Emmerich's Godzilla. Does anyone have this one?
Oh.
No.
This is a callback. This is the second time this movie has been brought up on this list. This is the correct choice. The first one was not. So
okay. Well, I don't know if
I don't have it.
I don't know if everyone has had the pleasure of seeing this one, but we were talking about when people give their picks, they're like, that movie's pretty bad, but there are a lot worse movies. And kind of like Kirk, there's a lot of bad movies, like notoriously bad movies I haven't seen. I guess I wasn't allowed to say it earlier, but I'm going to confess right now, I've never seen Catwoman. Like, that's one that I haven't seen. Like, there are quite a few movies I haven't seen. But I can tell you, this movie is freaking garbage. It's hard to imagine there are many movies worse than this movie. This movie, I mean, for some reason, they kind of made it a comedy. They got Matthew Broderick, Hank Azaria, and a lot of comedic actors and gave it this kind of cheesy 90s sitcom-y tone. But then they're also kind of aping Jurassic Park. They're kind of going for the Jurassic Park tone, but it's in New York, but they don't really have good effects in the 90s, so everything's raining, so you can't really see much. And then instead of the classic Godzilla design, they made Godzilla a giant iguana. It's ugly to look at. It doesn't look like Godzilla. One of the things I remember Roger Ebert pointing out in his review of the movie was the scale's wrong. Like, Godzilla's always changing size and scale. Like, if he needs to be huge and tower over the city, he's huge. If he needs to fit through a tunnel, he can do that. It's just really badly thought out. And then the biggest insult of all is, what are we going to do in our third act? Let's do some Jurassic Park. Let's do like a velociraptor thing. So Godzilla, it turns out, can have babies, hatches eggs, and there's a bunch of little Godzillas running around velociraptor style, and they go into an ice skating rink, and they're skating around on the ice, and they're and all this crazy stuff. It's insane. It's just a really, really horrible movie. And I know they're kind of going for something wacky, but it really doesn't work, and it's like 9 hours long. It's horrible.
This movie is the first time I noticed so much product placement in a movie.
Yeah, that too.
So much Doritos,
Pepsi.
So much Pepsi, so much everything. There's like that awkward scene of like all the fishes, like Matthew Broderick's trying to be something in this movie. I don't know what he's trying to be, but he studies
earthworms.
Oh yeah, that's what Paul said in the chat. That's funny. It's just an awful movie. This was actually on Best Monster Movies by Malcolm Goldie-Lay.
God bless Malcolm. God bless
wow.
that guy.
God bless you, sir.
I forgot he's in the Hall of Fame too. It's just bad. I think I've watched it twice in my life, and I've never like even attempted. I know I would have fun with it, like if I rewatched it, because I would be like completely just pissed. But yeah, I just can't. It's never going to be popped in. I can't do it. I couldn't purchase it. There's no way. So no. What about you? You guys didn't have this one. I think
I didn't have any of those.
No.
No, I think for me, Godzilla kind of just fades away into like that 1998 Armageddon, Deep Impact. Like, I really have zero memory of this movie. I saw it when it came out, and that was it. And you know, if I remember how bad it was, it made the list, but it just kind of fitted away.
Scarred me for life.
All right, Kirk. Anything for Kirk on that one? Did you just say anything?
Yeah, he just said his piece.
Yeah,
he said.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to your next one.
To my number 3 already.
Is that your fourth?
Yeah, Godzilla's his fourth.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, sorry, my bad. We just to shout out some people in the chat that we have right now. We got a ton of people actually.
Oh wow!
We've got Paul. We've got Star Drew. We've got Nazario. We've got Jonathan Peck, Andrew Barr. Douglas Castle is here for a little bit.
Good friends.
He might still be here. Multiplex is apparently here. Which is on the channel. That's funny. Some say that your choices are really rough. They don't disagree. Kirk doesn't like comedy. Jonathan's giving his
Apparently.
list one at a time, but he should be able to like put it all as one. That would be easier for everybody to read. And now we're having a history lesson on Pearl Harbor in the chat, and Paul's educating people. So that's really funny.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. That works.
So,
Okay.
here we go. We're gonna go 7 through
4.
7 through 4 with Nick. So we'll start with
Okay.
7. Go on.
All right. Number 7. One of the worst sequels I've ever watched in my life. Came out around that same time as Godzilla, but man, this one is just so terrible. I absolutely love the first film, and that is Speed 2 Cruise Control.
Like, nope. Okay.
Oh my! Oh,
No.
Wow. Yeah. No, but that's kind of surprising. This, like, I mean, it's, being a computer guy myself, the whole thing was like this really weird, hacker dude was like, he just got fired from his job. So he decided to hack a cruise ship that was coming in, and that was the start of it all. And then you had a really lame Jason Patrick who came in as the Keanu of this role, and he was just terrible. I thought he was awful the whole way through. And a random Willem Dafoe that was on the ship doing whatever the hell Willem Dafoe does. And it was, I don't know, it was just it was a terrible cash in, and I'll try to not repeat that word too often. I'll know it'll get old real quick, but it was just building off the first movie, because the first movie was so well done in my opinion, and I really did not like how that, how they just they could have gone so many more ways with it, and they just totally butchered it. So that's my number 7.
Yeah, Speed. That's an interesting one. I always go back and forth, but I think Speed, the first one, is probably my favorite '90s action movie. I have so much fun with Speed. I think it's fantastic. This is one movie that I've never watched because I don't think there's a point to it. I kind of like that the concept, because I think Liam Neeson picked it up later in life and decided to run with it. Like, we did it on this, and we're gonna now do it on this motor vehicle, and we'll do it on this motor vehicle.
Fair
it
enough.
went so many different ways, but it fell really flat. I understand why it's on this list. Somebody in the chat also had Speed 2. So Jeremy and Kirk, no Speed 2.
No Speed
you like
2.
Cruise Control?
Even when I was probably 16, 17 years old when this came out, and even then, before I really formed my taste in movies, I knew to steer clear of this one. I saw that.
Never seen it.
Cash grab, stay away.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen it actually. I just love that. They're like, let's do a sequel to Speed. So we're gonna change the mode of transportation. Cruise ship? You've got a bus that's hurtling through traffic, and now we're going to make it a cruise ship, which really can't go very fast and really isn't very interesting to watch. Terrible premise. I gotta say, though, of all the terrible sequels, this is one I kind of enjoy. I'm sorry, this is kind of a guilty pleasure. I mean, it's so badly misunderstands the first movie and what made the first movie good, but it's kind of wacky and about that, and it's kind of like they're doing all the same beats, and it's just something really stupid, in my opinion, kind of fun. And Willem Dafoe hamming it up for me is gold, and Sandra Bullock just doing her cutesy stuff is fun. I don't know. It's a real bad movie. I'm not saying it's not, but it's one that I can kind of enjoy, as opposed to the ones that I kind of pick for my list that I'd rather be punched in very tender areas than watch.
Fair enough.
This next one was actually a alteration. He had to change it because I did not classify it as a blockbuster, and he didn't either. So he changed it out, and I'm really interested to see this. I wish Kaleb Boatman was in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Ahead.
I'm glad my wife isn't here either, because she loves this movie. But this movie is so dumb. I legitimately think it's one of the worst Disney movies ever made. It's Chicken Little at number 6. Like I just like it's just terribly overacted. The father is just a freaking asshole. Like, he is just terrible. Like he's the worst father I've seen on screen in a long time. But I don't like it. It just it's just super ADD. It just goes from place to place. It doesn't really make any sense to me, and like it's I don't really know what else to say about it. Like it's like I couldn't follow it. Like it was just not a very good movie. I feel like it was just kind of just inserted in in the middle 2000s area that just to give them a movie. And like I said, I don't really have much to describe about it outside of that.
I missed a trivia question on Chicken Little, so
Yeah.
I hate this movie as well. Caleb Boatman hates Zach Braff so much he calls him an asshole. So I think that's very funny too.
Okay.
I don't know if it's part of a meme or just he's really hates Zach Braff, but I'm gonna let it go with that. He's the biggest heel in the community for a reason. You guys, I'm not gonna make another alteration, but this movie did come out in October, so it's off the summer. But you know,
I was worried I made that mistake on one of them.
But you know what? It's for your list sucks. It's not gonna make the personal top 10, but you at least got to talk about it.
Can we insert the one that I was gonna pick just for like 2 seconds?
Sure.
The one that I picked originally was The Adventures of Pluto Nash. So
it just made $3 million.
It made $3 million, so we couldn't include it.
But it was made for $100 million. Either way is fine. Chicken Little's fine. Anybody have anything to say about the Zach Braff-led Chicken Little?
My thing with Chicken Little is I just think it's one of those. It was in that period of Disney where I just consider those movies kind of meh. Like I don't get like up in arms like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. I'm just very indifferent to it. It's just kind of a forgettable animated movie. And for me, I think the most frustrating thing about it is that it's Disney. It feels like it should be some forgettable DreamWorks movie, and that's just where they were at that point. Unfortunately, they were sub DreamWorks at that time, and it's frustrating. But to me, it's not the worst thing ever for me.
Gotcha. Well,
fair enough.
And for me, it was this was a go-to movie for my kids for a while, so I think eventually just kind of became white noise. Like it was like a non-movie. I do want to call out Paul Yama on air. He's trying to say in the chat that Meet the Robinsons is worse than Chicken Little. That is insane.
Yeah, I kind of agree with him.
Oh my goodness!
But I didn't put it on this list.
Again, don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Your next one, sir. What is it?
Okay, number 4 is one of John Travolta's most regrettable appearances in a movie. Yep, Jeremy knows what it is. It's good old Battlefield Earth. So, oh wow, okay, all right. I figured someone would have had that in their top 3 at least.
I don't think it was in the top 20 that year.
It said it was.
It was? Oh,
yeah. According, well, like I think it like barely made it, like 19 or 20. Okay. But anyways, yeah. So, what to say about this movie? Terrible performances by John Travolta and Barry Pepper. It just a dumb story all the way through. Man, it's just one of those movies that snuck out. Like I think everyone was like, oh, John Travolta, let's go see it. And it was just an awful film. And like, it's obviously been a meme for this long. So we'll see how it goes but yeah, I mean, it barely made the top 20, but it was technically considered a blockbuster, and it came out in, what was it? Anyways, but it's just a freaking awful movie. And, that's about all I have to say about that one.
Battlefield Earth, the best set of dreadlocks that John Travolta has ever had on. Again, I'm kind of like Kirk at times when growing up. If I heard a movie was bad, most of the time I avoided it.
Yeah.
This one is one I didn't, because when you get to see John Travolta in this role, like I don't understand why he accepted this job. Why halfway through he thought this was a good idea.
I can tell you why.
Well, you'll tell me in a second. I just think it's a very, very bad movie. I agree. I think Paul makes an interesting topic. So this is how you decide it. Jeremy decided at top 20. He thinks the budget means more than what the box office makes.
Yeah.
But other than that, It doesn't matter. You decide how your list is. I think this is an appropriate pick for this one for sure. Jeremy, Nick, Kirk, missed your list. What can you tell us why?
I never saw it. I have it in my next. I have it in my next Netflix queue, but maybe someday I'll do it as a hate watch. But I have a feeling from what I hear, it's going to be a slog, so it might be a while before that happens.
Well, all I can say is you're all terrible Scientologists. Shame on all of you.
Yep, that's it.
That's why Travolta did it. I mean, that's what the whole thing was.
Fair enough.
You guys have convinced me. You know, it had a big budget. It did make some money, so I do think it would count for the top 10. So I guess I was wrong to think that, but no, I haven't seen it. I'm in Kirk's boat. I've seen some of the clips. It's kind of like Catwoman. Like I've seen like YouTube super edits of like some of the craziest scenes, but I never had the gumption to sit down and watch that one. So that's the real reason it didn't make it.
Yep.
Fair enough. And your last one, I couldn't agree more with you. Please start your talking because I have a lot to say after you're done.
Oh, and okay, it's too late now, but I already mixed up my list.
Uh-oh.
But, well, no, actually, now that I've said this movie's worse than the last one I just said. So, okay, my number 4. I literally couldn't sit through this movie. It is Fantastic Four 2015.
It's called Fan 4 Stick, please. Let's go.
Oh, Fan 4 Stick? Sorry, Fan 4 Stick. And,
thank you.
Like, this movie is, oh, my, let's see. Just the acting's terrible. The story makes absolutely zero sense. The villain, even though I love Toby Kebbell, is just stupid the whole way through. Like it was so dumb. I mean, there's amazing actors in this film, and you just completely screw it over. And like the final action scene was just one of the worst, like, falling flat action scenes you've ever seen in a movie theater. Like it just was it was just over in like 5 minutes and it made no sense. So, I mean, it was just, I mean, it kind of just stuck out, didn't do anything. You know, I'm glad they're remaking it. Hopefully, I mean, anything they do is going to be better than this movie. So, I mean, I was just disgusted at the end of this film because it was just as bad as everyone described it to be. So, I absolutely hated this movie.
This movie is it goes back and forth with my worst movie of 2015. The other one is Collateral Beauty.
That's a bad movie.
Both brought to by my wife. My wife made me go to both of these movies, and I told her this movie looked terrible. She said, it's a Fantastic Four. It's a comic book. It has to be good. Halfway through, I leaned over and I said, this is what you're making me do. And like, I literally just got up and like walked around the theater for a little bit because I just couldn't take it. The whole movie, they learn about their powers and they end up teaming up for the last 10 minutes to take on the villain that just learned his powers.
I mean, even less than that. Yeah.
And able to defeat him after getting beat up one time in the same plot point, why a giant thing tries to suck up the Pacific Northwest. It's a very awkward movie. I can't stand it. I will never go rewatch it. The movie, I think the beginning has a great like jumping point, but man, does it like instead of like trying to turn the Titanic from the iceberg, it runs head on to it and just tries to kill everybody on board. It's an awful movie. It ruins some of the greatest cast choice for the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this movie with a passion. Kirk, Jeremy, your lists have went down a little bit for not mentioning this one.
I know. Again, I believe you. Believe me, I believe you guys so much. I've never heard a good word about this movie. It's not one that I've seen. I just, sometimes I'll see these movies because everyone's talking about them, but I couldn't force myself to go through that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And I have seen it just out of morbid curiosity, and everything everybody says about it is true. Second Fantastic Four movie that only exists to hold on to the rights to the Fantastic Four. Yeah. I don't know why they want to keep it so bad if they're just going to keep making crappy movies. But it's the only reason it didn't make my list was because it didn't meet the dollar criteria of my list. Otherwise, definitely would have been on there.
Yeah, fair enough. All right,
fair. All right, it's now Kirk. We've been waiting. We've been waiting
Oh
to
boy,
see how
everyone's waiting what the next 4 are
What
for this.
movies do I like? Does he have next?
Shout out to Nazario, Paul, and Andrew in the chat. They're having fun with it. I realize, Cody, I think I'm the anti-Malcolm, where he loves the movie people hate. I hate the movies people love. I can live with that.
Yeah.
But I think my number 7 is a movie that most people are going to be in agreement with. It is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Anybody else have that?
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this was Jurassic World. The first one had its problems. I walked out of that experience confused, a little annoyed, but entertained. This movie was just bad and stupid. And it's like, hey, let's take dinosaurs and put them in a haunted house. That's a great idea. But the worst thing, the greatest sin this movie commits, there is a scene where a human being snuggles with a velociraptor. A velociraptor! I have never been more angry watching a movie than I was in that moment. I mean, the Jurassic World kind of takes a dump on a lot of what was established in the original Jurassic Park, but those things, velociraptors are a natural disaster. They are nature's perfect killing machines, and they turn them into these like little cute domesticated pets, and I could not abide that. Other than that, it's just really boring. Waste the Jeff Goldblum cameo. It's just dumb. It's just that whole like, again, almost like trying to self-parody with the different mutations and different splicing of dinosaurs, but the fact that you're self-parodying doesn't make it any less dumb. Just a really stupid movie, stupid concept from where they went with it, and yeah, I just really hated it.
I am going to get so much hate for this, but I'm okay with this. I have stopped trying to get the next Jurassic Park because the next Jurassic Park will never come. That movie is beautiful. I make them disaster movies, and this movie is a disaster. It really is. It's not great, but I still at moments had fun in it, and that's the problem with it. I am an apologist for Jurassic Park. I don't believe there's ever been a great sequel. I like Jurassic World more than most, and I like Lost World more than most. But this one has some moments a little too high on your list for me. I think this is a 10 if you want to put it there, but I actually did enjoy it. It's not. It's pretty rough. But I'm gonna go to Nick and Jeremy. Didn't make your list. Didn't see it, or just not a fan of it.
I didn't see it. I had heard what basically Kirk just explained, that it was not very good at all. So I have it at the very bottom of my list. I plan to watch it one day, but I have not watched it yet.
Smart man.
Yep.
Well, Kirk, I heard Jurassic Park coming out of your mouth, and I'm like, oh, he picked Jurassic Park 3. What a great choice. That was very close to making my list because that movie's garbage. I'm with Cody. I'm with Cody. I don't really hate this movie. It's dumb. It's stupid for sure, but I did have some fun with it. It's kind of, I think of it the same way I think of The Lost World. Like it's not anywhere near Jurassic Park, but if you want to just watch some dinosaurs and have some fun, I think there are worse things. I had a little bit of fun with it, but Jurassic Park 3, no.
Fair enough. And rude. The Jeff Goldblum thing, when the giant, I don't know his name. I had to know it for a trivia match. I don't know anything. Swims through and he's like, "Welcome to Jurassic World." I'm like, bring on the next one. I'm ready. And I'm one of the worst people for that, and I understand that, and you can all suck it because your list sucks anyway. So go ahead, give us your next one because I'm about to lose my shit on you again. So go ahead.
Yeah, number 6.
Oh, no.
Wait for chat to blow up. I'm not going to make any friends here. My number 6 is either the worst or second worst MCU movies. Those are the only 2 placements I will accept on your list. It is Iron Man 3.
Oh, you're my best goddamn friend, Kirk. God bless you.
Iron Man 3 is the absolute worst example, and this happens in superhero movies all the time, where a director, for some reason, agrees to direct a property, and says, I have no interest in directing this. I have no respect for the source material. I'm just going to make a movie that I want to make and paint a thin veneer of the property, the IP, over the movie I want to make. Okay. And that's exactly what Shane Black does here. Because I hear all the time, oh, it's a good Shane Black movie. Who cares? I didn't watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang waiting for the Incredible Hulk to show up because he doesn't belong in that movie. And I did not watch Iron Man 3 to see a Shane Black movie, to see Lethal Weapon 5, which is what he tried to make here. You know what I mean? You have Iron Man and War Machine in the third act running around in street clothes with handguns like this. Like, what is that? It's called Iron Man 3 because Iron Man is in the movie for about 3 minutes. Okay? It's ridiculous. And then all the suits come out there and it's like, oh, they were there the whole time. And you could have had it any time. I could have watched an actual Iron Man movie. What turns out to be the last Iron Man movie we're ever going to get to see, the last solo movie, huge disappointment. And the whole Mandarin thing was garbage. And I mean, I know, like, and let me touch on this. I'm really sick and tired of anytime you shoot down the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, you're automatically racist. Like, the only two choices are 60s Asian caricature and Ben Kingsley fart jokes. Those are the only two possible interpretations of that character. And I know we're going to get him in the new the movie that's coming out next year, but it's too late because he can't fight Iron Man now. Because, spoiler alert, Iron Man's dead. So, just a horrible
what
end
the hell?
Just real, like I said, complete disrespect for the source material, for what it's supposed to be, and I hate it.
Okay.
Right. The chat definitely does not like you. The chat to quote Poliyama, Kirk wants directors to be slaves to franchises. Right on. Cool. Let me address Paul right here. Denny O'Neil, the former editor-in-chief of DC Comics, made a great comment. He said, when you take over, when you get involved, whether you're a writer, a comic, director, or movie, you are the custodian of folklore. You have a responsible to what came before you and what will come after you. This idea that just because a director gets handed a franchise, that he is the end-all, be-all of that franchise now, get out of here with that. Miss me with that. That's nonsense. Okay. I enjoy Iron Man 3 a ton. I may be the only one. I love Shane Black as a director in this. I agree it's not the best MCU movie. I believe it's the one. I believe it's a Shane Black movie. I 100% agree with you.
I agree as well.
And none of the stuff carries over through the other movies. But there are some great moments to this. I'm not a big fan of the Ben Kingsley moment either. But I feel like there's way worse MCU movies on this. I just like the other three. I actually like all three pretty much Iron Mans at times. Iron Man 2, I think it gets a bad rap, but honestly, it's not as bad as people write it off. I think Thor: The Dark World is still the worst one on there.
That's the other option.
Just because it doesn't have anything to go with. But again, that's your apparently. You just said Kirk hates Last Jedi. Confirmed.
Yep.
Okay, so it's an interesting choice. I wouldn't agree that it's one of the worst summer blockbusters. I really enjoyed this movie. I just enjoy the MCU as a whole. But I'm gonna first go to Jeremy. You were like, I love you, so I know you don't like this.
Yeah, I'm just so happy, and I feel like Kurt's a better man than me because I spend my whole life talking about how I dislike this movie, and so many people like it and have all of their explanations for why it's good and why it's one of the best MCU movies, and it's a fight that I'm always having. So for that reason, I was like, I dislike this movie, but I'm not going to put it on my list. I'm not going to have that fight, and Kurt did it for me because he's a great man. I hate this movie.
Come die on the hill with me, Jeremy. We'll go down together.
I don't know where you live, Kirk, but let's go get drinks after after this tonight. I think if I have one word to describe this movie, the word would be smug. I just think it's a smug movie. I think it's got a lot of, aren't we so clever sort of attitude to it. I don't really like any of the supporting characters in it. Rebecca Hall, James Badge Dale, all these great actors are wasted with just obnoxious characters, and it just, like you said, it doesn't really give you what you want in an Iron Man movie. It's got him hanging out with the kid for a whole bunch of it, and it's I don't get it. I mean, Iron Man 2 is a lesser version of Iron Man, but it's still gives you an Iron Man movie. This movie, I get it. They got another director. He's trying to do something different with it. I don't like what he did with it. I really think it's an off-putting movie, and it's the only MCU movie I've ever felt that way about. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it's just you, maybe it's just me, Kirk, but it's good to know there's one other guy out there. At the very least.
Okay, Kirk, real quick, anything?
You mean Nick?
Nick, sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of liked this movie.
You're the majority, my friend. Don't feel bad.
I agree. It's definitely on the bottom half of, at least the bottom half, if not the bottom quarter of Marvel films. But I don't know. It was just it was a fun popcorn movie. I didn't really take too much offense to it, but I mean, all your points are valid. So, I know that's not the point of the show, but I do see what you mean, but it is definitely a Shane Black movie, not an Iron Man movie, but I like Shane Black a lot. So
but he also did The Predator, right?
Yeah, he did do that one too. But anyways, I mean, like I said, it wasn't bad enough for me to put it anywhere near this list, but it's not a great movie either.
All right, give us your next one.
Okay, I probably win some people back with this one. My number 5 is one of the biggest disappointments. Jeremy's been talking about disappointing sequels and sequels that kind of take a dump on what's come before. Number 5, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That is going.
Friends again, guys.
That is higher.
That was basically number 11. Go ahead.
All right. Okay.
We'll have to come back to that.
Oh, okay. We'll have to come to that one. All right.
Okay. All right. And my number 4. Jeremy earlier was talking about Spider-Man 3, and he was talking about Spider-Man movies that may or may not have been worse. I think I may have picked the one he was talking about. My number 4, and I'm going to lose everybody again here, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh. I'm not going to lose anybody.
I mean, no, you're not losing me.
Watch the chat. Sure. Lots of hot takes in the chat.
Yeah.
Nobody else has this?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
It was either or.
I
was back and forth between.
It was very close, but go ahead.
I gotcha. Yeah, and this is just it's the villains are ridiculous. Electro is one of the worst comic book villains maybe we've seen in the past 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. Rips off the origin story of Catwoman from Batman Begins for some reason. And just Jamie Foxx's performance is just trash. Completely waste Paul Giamatti as Rhino. I was really excited to see him in that role, and it's nothing, and it's stupid. I do not like what's his name? I'm blanking on his name now. Spider-Man.
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. Yeah.
I do not. I didn't buy him in the first one as Spider-Man, but this one he's just terrible. I hate the fact that the great thing about the Raimi Spider-Mans is at the end of Spider-Man 1 he walks away from Mary Jane. He does the right thing. In this one he promises what's her name's dad that he's going to leave her alone, and before the body is cold, he breaks that promise, and it just completely turns me off the character. And I mean it was so bad that Sony had to go to Marvel and say, please help us fix it. You made another studio just kowtow to Marvel, say we don't know what to do. They threw their hands up. That's how bad this was. So that's my number 4.
Yep.
We'll go fast because we're running a little short on time. But no, this is awful. I don't care. I hate Spider-Man 3, but I also hate this one too. So when people say it's like, oh, this one's actually good, you're completely wrong. It may look good. They waste Gwen Stacy's death in this movie. The Electro literally is one of the worst villains in this movie. They try it again. They just try too much. They go too big all the time in these movies, and it drives me nuts. I actually like the first one, not as much. I like the first one. But I think this is just a convoluted mess. They learned nothing from Spider-Man 3, and they just tried it again in this one, and it didn't work for them then, and it doesn't work now. I think it looks good, but in 2014, I'm guessing your special effects are up at the top of the level. So I hate it. I've never been happy with this movie. I've never rewatched it. And somebody said in the chat that the romance between Andrew Garfield and his top tier. Well, guess what? They were together. So what a shock that they actually loved each other.
No, that is incorrect,
Move along.
sir.
The script was awful. Jeremy said it was either this or that for Spider-Man 3. Nick, did you have anything quick to say about it?
I mean, not really. I mean, I pretty much agree. It's by far the worst Spider-Man movie in my opinion.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
And
All right,
and I'll
go
just
ahead,
add. The only thing that kind of swayed me was you went from Spider-Man 2, which is a movie I love, to getting kicked in the gut with Spider-Man 3. But with this, I didn't like The Amazing Spider-Man. I think Amazing Spider-Man sucks, so I wasn't expecting
That's
this
fair.
one to be good. So that was the only thing that kind of swayed me.
That's
fair.
That's fair.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go threes now. So, Jeremy, what's your number 3?
All right. My number 3 is I actually hadn't realized this movie actually made money. You always hear about what a debacle it was, but it actually did make a decent amount of money. I think the number one case of taking a great IP, something that's really good, and just absolutely desiccating it on the screen, and that is the M. Night Shyamalan classic disaster, The Last Airbender. No one has this.
Yikes!
He's got it.
Nope,
He's
I don't
got
have
it.
it.
All right.
All right, Nick, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is also M. Night Shyamalan,
Okay.
but I think that it pretty close to the same amount of terrible. I'm going to go with 2008's The Happening. This movie is just so terribly acted. Like I did a little bit of college theater, so I'm no expert, but like Zooey Deschanel, I love her on New Girl, but she is just like a complete robot in this movie. And the interactions they're going with, and Mark Wahlberg, who's also he's a great actor. He's he's so good in, so many different things. And he's going up to, like, when they one of the scenes where the train stops and he goes up to the policeman and he's like, "Why are you guys stopped?" Like, he's so exaggerated, and it's just so dumb the whole way through. And spoilers for anyone in the chat who happens not to see this, good for you. The plants are the ones that are killing everyone. Like, apparently they are infecting everyone to cause themselves to kill themselves. I don't know. The twist is revealed like 30 minutes into the movie. I could go on and on, but I know we're running short on time. But this movie, this is by far M. Night. This is M. Night Shyamalan's second worst movie. Somewhat.
Again, I can never win with Paul Oyama. He says this movie is kind of amazing. It's not even the bottom 3.
What?
Shyamalan, so.
Oh my God! Are you joking? Jeez.
It is what it is.
Credibility out the window.
Yeah, are you kidding me right now?
Again, me and him butt heads half the time on movies. Just a real quick, just from Kirk or Jeremy, anything about The Happening real fast?
No.
Yeah, it's the Speed 2 thing for me. It's a horrible movie, but I find it very enjoyable. It's so bad it's a good movie. I have fun with it. That's the only reason it would make my list. But of course, I would never say it's a good movie. It's horrible, but for me, it's pretty fun. And I just got to say, I get a lot of crap because I actually like Lady in the Water, so I will join Oyama in the getting crap for liking Shyamalan movies train.
Actually, Oyama says it's the Lady in the Water is so much worse. So that's
I like that one. So
okay. So we're gonna go to Kirk next. What's your 3?
My number 3 is a movie, again, franchise killer. And I'm not even sure which one this is. This is the one that came out in the summer. I just know that. The 2 movies run together in my head. Number 3 is Matrix Reloaded.
It didn't. It came out in November. That's why.
We'll then go with Revolutions. Whatever Matrix movie, whatever Matrix sequel came out.
Okay, Reload.
Yeah, because they blend together in my head.
That's fair.
It's so incredibly obvious that the Wachowskis had an idea for one self-contained story. The movie obviously blew up. We know what happened. The studio said $signs. They said we want trilogy, and they were kind of like, okay, this. And it was just terrible. I mean, they took what little lore they teased you with in the first Matrix, and it was just made a really stupid movie out of it. I mean, there's some fun stuff. Is this the one with the highway chase?
Yeah, that's Reloaded. Yeah,
and
that's Reloaded.
Yeah. that was kind of fun, but other than that, it's just a slog. And you have the architect and all the other nonsense that goes on in this. I mean, it's one of those movies. Everything that's bad to be said about it has already been said. Let me see what Paul has to say nice about this movie.
Very
No.
well said.
One of the best modern action scenes. Thanks, Paul. But and I agree with you. That highway chase is pretty good. But otherwise, this killed the Matrix. I honestly cannot watch the first Matrix now and enjoy it that much because of the sequels. That's how bad these movies are.
Okay.
So yeah, Matrix Reloaded. Yeah. Okay.
This is one I never went to because I've heard so bad. I watched the first one and I just heard they were bad, so I just didn't watch it.
That's awesome.
I am definitely bringing Paul and Kirk on an episode together. That would be the best fight I've ever seen in my life.
I will be in that. I will be in that chat for that one. That's for sure.
I might just include Brian Michaels just for fun. I may do a 4-person panel of Nazario and Ball versus Brian.
Oh my
Kirk.
God!
I think it might be a blast. Setting up for a perfect scenario right now, but anything quick on Matrix, guys?
Matrix Revolutions is in my bottom 10 movies of all time. There's very few movies I hate worse than Matrix Revolutions. That would have been my number one if it came out in the summer. But I don't think Reloaded's is bad. I think it's okay.
Yeah, like Paul said, the action scenes are good. I enjoyed the action, but I agree, it just kind of like slugged along. Sorry, yeah, but yeah. I enjoyed the sequels. I thought they were fun for what they were. So
fair enough. Okay, we're gonna go to 2. It's gonna be a time to talk about one that was skipped earlier.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jeremy. Tell us what your 2.
okay.
Okay. Everybody, there's a lot of people that have spent many, many years talking about how horrible the Star Wars prequels are, how they ruined their love of Star Wars, how they waited so long for those movies to come back and then they were shattered. But I honestly never thought those movies were that bad. For me, that movie is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Okay.
Indiana Jones is my favorite movie character. He's my favorite movie hero. That franchise always personally meant more to me than Star Wars or any other franchise. I was so excited for that movie that I was so keyed up for it. And again, I think it's a sequel. I can't believe it was Spielberg himself that did it, that just completely misunderstands everything about the character, misunderstands why we like the Indiana Jones movies. The Indiana Jones movies were largely about stunt work. This is a bunch of people in front of green screens for the most part, and horrible computer graphics. Indiana Jones was the reluctant hero, the guy who's always getting beat up. He's basically superhuman in this movie, an old man who can't be hurt or be killed. It misunderstands everything, and it hurts me, and I try to forget that it happened.
Real quick on Kirk, you had it on your Kirk, you had it on your
this is my number 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And same as Jeremy. I got suckered in like Jeremy was. I was so excited for this. I thought, this is something they could do. They could bring him back, and they could make it worse. And I think they had a lot going against it. I think the time jump didn't help. I don't think he really fit in that time. And I mean, that may be in part of the story anyway. But it really was just anachronous to the rest of the franchise and didn't feel like it belonged. Shia LaBeouf's character was kind of just out of left field and not good at all. And it just really, the spirit of that original trilogy, because a lot of people in the chat are saying Temple of Doom's worse. Temple of Doom's not a great movie, but you watch that.
I'll fight all those people later. We'll fight another time.
I won't defend Temple of Doom as a good movie, but I mean, it still feels like an Indiana Jones movie. Yeah. This one just feels like, like you said, it's all green screen. It's people, it's special effects. Just the exact opposite of everything. It's almost like Spielberg was in charge of the first 3, and with this one, Lucas is like, "Let me handle this one," and we got CGI gophers. So it was it's just because of just the level of disappointment alone is why it was so high on my list.
That's
just a real quick blurb before we move on. This movie, I got perfect attendance in school because they were taking us to a movie. It turned out to be this movie, and I yelled at my teacher when we got on the bus. They took me to see this movie.
Yeah.
Why didn't we have a test instead?
I said I should have missed school because what my dad showed me, that wasn't Indiana Jones. We're just gonna move on to number 2 for Nick. What's your number 2?
My number 2. All right. This is kind of a personal one, so we'll see how people agree with it or not. But it is in my opinion, the worst sequel to ever come out in the history of cinema, and that is Caddyshack 2. Caddyshack, the original Caddyshack. My dad turned me onto this movie. It is my favorite comedy of all time. Anyone can fight me on that if they want, but I think it's one of the funniest movies of all time. And then this movie just completely oh man, I can't even believe Harold Ramis even hopped on to do this movie. But I mean, the fact that they turned it into this guy it's this this midget dude, Jackie Mason, that was like, oh, I'm so mad I didn't make it into the club that I'm gonna turn this club into an amusement park. It's like, that makes no sense at all. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like I said, it's not funny at all. I mean, it's one of Dan Aykroyd's worst roles ever. He's like a 5-cent Bill Murray in this movie. And and Chevy Chase shows up, and yes, I mean, he tries to help, but he can't do anything. It's just so bad. But I mean, anyways, yeah, like I said, it's just the worst sequel of all time, and I wish it was never made. And I feel like a lot of people agree in that sense. And I just feel sick talking about it anymore.
This is the one I skipped, basically. Caddyshack 1 I like a lot.
That's fair.
I just never went because I just heard all the bad things, and it just was never one that clicked with me. Kirk, Jeremy, anything quick on Caddyshack 2?
I don't hold Caddyshack in the original net high esteem. I think it's a little overrated. I never saw the sequel, but yeah. Well, you know what? I did. I think I caught part of it when I was a kid on HBO or something. I remember seeing Jackie Mason and Dan Aykroyd. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's I don't begrudge Nick this at all. It's from everything I know about
it's a legendarily bad sequel. I mean, you're going to replace Rodney Dangerfield with Jackie Mason?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I haven't seen it since I was a pretty young kid, and I don't remember it that well. That's the only reason I can't really rank it or put it there.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So let's go to Kirk's 2. What's your 2?
Okay, my number 2. Some may call it obvious. Some may say it's low-hanging fruit. But it's kind of become like the trendy thing to defend this movie now. So I'm actually going to take my phone and I'm just going to remove the chat from this conversation.
Uh-oh.
Because I don't want to hear what they have to say about it. My number 2 is Star Wars Episode 1: Phantom Menace. I mean, like I said, it's a pretty obvious pick. But again, going from the standard that was set and the expectations that were set, how high those were and how low the movie performed. I mean, I could talk about, the ridiculous of it, the Jar Jar, the bad effects, Anakin Skywalker, and the Mr. Obi-Wan, sir, what are midichlorians, sir, all that nonsense. Midichlorians. This movie gave us midichlorians. Yeah, it just kind of killed Star Wars for so many people. And again, is it as bad as we thought it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Maybe not, but it's still a really horrible movie, and it's just a blight on the Star Wars franchise. And again, like I said, a lot of my list was made based off of expectations. What did I think this movie would be, what I think it could be, and what did it end up being? And this is one of the legendary all-time disappointments for movies. So Phantom Menace is my number 2.
Okay.
I've turned into this person that I'm actually finding less love for Star Wars the more I stay in this community. Either one, it's held to such a high regard that it's like the end-all be-all, or that people just crap on it all the time. I like them. I think they're fine movies, even the original. I mean, I didn't grow up with them. I didn't see them in the theaters, so I'm losing interest over time. I did not like the Galactic C-SPAN that the Phantom Menace gave us. I understand their viewpoints, but it was bad. I think Attack of the Clones is way worse, but I understand the anticipation of what was coming after those 3 originals. So I get your viewpoint on that one. I don't think that's a bad take at all. I think it's an obvious one. Why wouldn't it be? Mm-hmm. But fair enough. Anything real quick on Phantom Menace, guys?
I knew someone was going to have a prequel.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way that wasn't going to happen. I personally just don't hate the prequels. Maybe it's because I wasn't the hugest Star Wars guy growing up. Like, I always liked Star Wars, but I wasn't as wrapped up in it as a lot of people are. Phantom Menace isn't a good movie. I'm not going to say it is, but there are a few things in there that I kind of like about it. There are some touches. It is Lucas, for better or worse, giving us his vision. So I don't hate it in the way that, like I said, I do with Crystal Skull. But no, it's not good. And, I'm not going to begrudge you having that there because someone was going to.
Yep. And I would say I dislike 2 more than 1. But like I said, that's just me. And with 1, I think it's really held up just high enough because of Duel of the Fates from John Williams. Like, that song is just so badass, in my opinion. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's that part like raises it up just enough. So that's why I didn't put it on my list.
Fair enough. We're going to 1s. Jeremy, take it home.
Oof. Okay.
Oh, okay. My number 1. All right. So this is a franchise that I think was destined to come up here today, just like I think the Star Wars prequels were. I liked the first movie in this franchise, and then once I saw this second one, I was out. I didn't watch the sequels until a slight kind of reboot happened, and because this movie to me, it's everything that I hate. I hate that they make movies like this and they have huge budgets and they make so much money where all these smaller good movies are getting thrown aside or not even getting made because they're making stuff like this. It is, a lot of people would have different picks in this franchise, but like I said, I stopped watching the other sequels. It is Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. I actually like Transformers, the first one, and that takes a lot for me to say because I personally do not like Michael Bay. I don't like what he does as a filmmaker. He's always given me a headache, and I don't, side topic, I don't think he's a good guy. I think he's kind of a bad guy, and he's poisoned Hollywood with a lot of stuff that he's done and put out there. But I thought, Transformers, it had Spielberg producing. I think it kind of got a little bit of the spirit and had some sequences of good stuff to it. And then I just feel like, I don't know, that Michael Bay was like, okay, Transformers made money. I'm just going to make another one and I don't give a shit. And that movie is just, it's an insult. It is a movie that hates its viewers. It's got racist caricatures. It's got ridiculous stuff like a hot female Transformer that, of course, he gets caught making out with in front of. What is going on in this movie? It's got the great actor John Turturro having to talk about enemy scrotum with the giant Transformer. I mean, and it's 4 days long. It's endless. It's a movie that we're not only going to make a movie that we don't care about, that we hate our audience, that is just a pain to watch, that flushes everything you like about this IP down the toilet, but we're going to make it 3 hours long or whatever it is. It's to me, there's nothing worse for me. This signifies everything that is bad about what a summer blockbuster can be. And I was out until Bumblebee, and then they made Bumblebee, and I love that movie. So I haven't gone back to the other ones. So if you're going to tell me last night or whatever's worst, I'm sorry, I was out with this one.
This is the third one?
Second one.
Second one. Okay. Yeah, I can't. I'm with you. I can't keep the track of them at all. I remember I just got hired on at a theater, and I watched Age of Extinction twice in the theater. And I thought about visiting the roof a couple times during it. It's literally the most insane movies I've ever seen in my life. I like the first one for what it is, but like the other ones are just awful. They are awful movies. They make no sense. The timelines don't match up. A human saves the day with giant robots. Why there's a whole sequence? This movie could be way shorter. Why do we even have army men in this? They don't do anything to them. They shoot them and nothing happens. They're just casualties. It makes no sense throughout the entire movie. I can't stand it. I like Michael Bay in like certain movies. Not all of his movies I think are bad. I love Bad Boys. But that's not another topic. Anybody got anything to say about Transformers? I think everybody in the movie communities have said enough about Transformers.
Probably.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. Oh, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, visually, it's like, ooh, it's so pretty, but I mean, Jeremy brought up some
Not to
fantastic.
me.
Oh no, that's
Okay.
fair. No, I'm just saying. No, you brought up some fantastic points, and I didn't watch the last two, and I mean they're bad movies. They are, and like I said, a couple of the Transformer films were in my top 15. They almost made the list, so I totally understand this choice for sure.
Fair
Yeah,
enough, fair enough.
I was right with Jeremy there too. It's I tapped out after this one. It's the last one I've seen, and it probably should have made my list. I think I was just kind of like trying to ignore Transformers and the fact that franchise exists. The first one, I think, just like Jeremy said, it's passable. It's not great. This one was just like he said, insult. It was just a terrible movie.
It was bad. It was bad.
And real quick, I just want to say, I'm sorry, Sandy. I couldn't.
You're fine. Go ahead. You're fine.
I'm apologizing to Sandy because he loves these movies.
There was quite a few people that were like, "Don't be mean to the Transformers," and I was like, "How could you not be?"
No, they're awful. That's fair. Nick, real quick, tell us about your number one.
Okay, my number one was already mentioned by Jeremy because I grew up watching this show. My wife loves this show. We're actually just watching it recently. We're watching through the old animated. It's the last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan. Oh, okay. Obviously it's a movie that someone that he wrote and directed that he obviously had never watched the show before. Like he just looked it up on Wikipedia the day before and decided to write a script about it. It's a great story. If anyone's never watched it, the TV show is worth watching. But like, acting's terrible, writing's terrible, animation is terrible, and it's hard to put into words how much I hate this movie because it's actually the only movie. I was working in a movie theater at a time at the time this movie came out. It's the only movie I've ever walked out on, and I saw it for free. So if that tells you anything, that's how terrible this movie is. Like I mean, it's by far his worst movie, and he's made some pretty bad ones. But this is his worst movie, and the two white actors they brought on to play Katara and Sokka, which are my two favorite characters, totally butchered them. But yeah, okay. I'll stop because I know we're running short on time, but this movie is just absolutely terrible, and no one should ever watch it again.
I'll just jump on real quick as it was my number 3. Yeah, the whitewashing. It just commits one of the great sins, which is it's so boring. It's just the dullest freaking movie. It's not exciting to look at, and Shyamalan is not a director that's meant to make, big special effects blockbusters. That's not his bag. And this was just an absolute disaster. And I actually have not watched all of the show. I've only seen a little bit. I know it's a classic, but it took something that I was looking forward to, and this was my first taste of it. And that is the biggest insult that there is.
Yeah, the show does it right. But anyways, go ahead.
Fair enough. Let's take it home. All three have this on their list. Let's talk about it in a quick manner. But let's talk about the Ice Age. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah, my number one you guys had on your list. Yeah. And again, it's another obvious pick, but it's obvious for a reason. It's Batman and Robin. Oh, yeah. This one is just – it was – say what you will about the Burton movies. Some people like them, hate them, whatever. He created such a great tone and such a great world for Batman to exist in. This movie was a huge step backwards. I know a lot of people can enjoy this movie. Ironically, I can't. Just the silliness and the zaniness. Leave that back in the '60s. The not just that, the acting was bad. Everybody was horrible. Mm-hmm. George Clooney was a horrible choice for Batman. And Schwarzenegger was, I know a lot of people have fun with him, but just if you look at what they did with the Dr. Freeze character in Batman the Animated Series, what they could have done in a live action film, and how they just totally destroyed that. And from top to bottom, with the way they created Bane, the silliness of the plot, like diamond powered lasers and ice powered lasers, whatever it was, it's so bad that it killed the Batman franchise for a while. If you watch Batman Begins is almost an apology for this movie. Mm-hmm. If you watch how strictly that movie tries to maintain its real worldness, it's almost literally saying, "We're sorry. We're not that movie. We're doing it different." And that's what the negative impact this movie had in the Batman franchise as a whole. And yeah, it's terrible.
Oh, It
was my number 5. It's a horrible movie. I think that this movie is an insult to the Adam West Batman, because that's how you do campy Batman right, and this is how you do campy Batman wrong. This movie is just it's just unwatchable. It's awful. And I know some people have fun with like Arnold hamming it up, but if it wasn't Mr. Freeze, if it wasn't such a great character with so much potential, maybe him hamming it up would be more fun. But for me, it just flushes everything down the toilet.
Yeah, and it like I said, one last little thing. Like all 10 of these films are like this close to being the worst. Like they're all awful. So that's, I mean, even though I put mine at 10, like it could have easily been like any in the top 3, no question. Like it's just like everything Kirk said. It's just a terrible movie.
Yeah, I also still love the bargaining between who gets to pay for Poison Ivy, and
Don't say it.
I'll let you pay for it, and then Batman pops the card out and be like, "Don't leave the cave without it." Boom!
Oh, that
one's that's really bad. This movie is awful. I like the quippy lines between Arnold at times, I will have to admit, but I can't get through the whole movie. I think it's terrible. But that was your list sucks. Sorry, I know that there's a certain match that's going on after this, so that's why I kind of rushed this episode at the end, just to keep everybody, because that's an important match. But again, we got your top 10 list, and here it is, guys. Your number 10, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Number 9, Fan 4-Stick. Your number 8 is Godzilla 98.
Yeah.
Your number 7 is Matrix Reloaded. Your number 6 is Phantom Menace. Your number 5 is Caddyshack 2. Your number 4 is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
Okay.
Your number 3 is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Your number 2 is The Last Airbender. And your number 1, not an obvious, all 3 people,
Fair enough. Batman and Robin.
Very nice.
Fair enough.
I'm going to make this real quick. I promise that if everybody stuck around, they'd learn the next topics that I'm bringing up. Next week will be musicals. I have my panel picked. They are coming on. I have Tarantino characters. I decided 2 weeks after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So if you like a character in there, you can talk about that character. So I wanted to because his characters stand out. So I wanted to give a shot and not say, this person would have made it if not. The next 4, I don't have a ranking like where they will be, but the first one is going to be Best Actors represented by one role. So it's an actor that you think is one of the best actors of all time in a role, just one movie that he plays, and you'll explain why that you chose that movie to represent that actor. Next one would be Best Romantic Comedies. So Best Romantic Comedies of all time. I think that's going to be a very interesting list because there's some great ones, some bad ones, but we'll see who has what. An interesting choice that my producer, Mr. Paul Oyama, I call him the producer behind the scenes because we run ideas off each other, and he's actually a great asset to have. Is most overrated movies of the 2010s.
Ooh,
so
nice.
That'd be a good one. That's a good one.
Probably see where we go. And my last one is going to be a really fun one. I don't know the area that I will pick. It will be either acting, it will be technical, it will be directing, it will be best picture, something like that. But my one is Oscars Got It Wrong. So
that'll be a good one.
Mess up ones. The graphics will be probably on screen hopefully tomorrow, the next day.
Yeah.
Please sign up for them. Everybody, Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Kirk, for being on the show. Your list truly sucks. Your average list is about a C. Kirk gets the win for today of being the worst list on the list. Jeremy is the one I would agree with the most on here. So Jeremy gets a higher ranking, and Nick finished second. Guys, thank you for being on. See you next week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.